The U.S. vigorously pushes for Thunderbolt sanctions against Russia at the G7, but allies object. The G7 is set to tighten economic sanctions against Russia at the summit in Japan. The goal is to increase pressure on Russia's energy and exports. However, previous sanctions have not deterred Russia's military campaign in Ukraine. The U.S. is proposing new measures, but facing opposition from some allies. The EU is also negotiating its 11th package of sanctions. The G7 is struggling to find additional options to escalate economic sanctions against Russia. Oil prices drop as U.S. stockpiles increase. Economic pressure persists. Oil prices decrease due to the rise in U.S. oil inventories and weak demand prospects from the U.S. and China. U.S. oil inventories increased by 3.7 million barrels, defying expectations of a 1.3 million barrel decrease. Gasoline and distillate stocks also declined. Weak economic data from the U.S. and China curtail the oil price recovery. China's post-COVID-19 recovery may be slowing down, causing instability in oil demand. The U.S.'s plan to fill the Strategic Petroleum Reserve (SPR) and a strong dollar create pressure on oil prices. Biden's nightmare of a debt crisis looms before his trip to Asia. U.S. President Joe Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy are nearing an agreement to avoid a U.S. debt crisis. However, both sides have yet to reach a consensus and need more time. Biden shortens his Asia trip due to economic risks. There are still many tasks to be accomplished in the meeting between the two parties. Republicans refuse to raise the debt ceiling without spending cuts. The risk of a debt crisis could push the U.S. into a recession. Biden will continue to communicate and reconvene after returning to the country. Moscow, U.S., NATO seek to turn Central Asia into a stronghold to confront Russia. The U.S. and NATO are attempting to threaten Russia's southern border by turning Central Asia into a hub. The U.S. is attracting Central Asian countries to participate in partnership programs and training, restarting joint exercises, and deploying shared military infrastructure. The U.S. Secretary of State announced a new $25 million aid package and pledged to increase the total aid amount to $50 million. The U.S. is trying to compete with Russia and China in the region. Central Asian nations are diversifying their relationships and enhancing cooperation with the U.S. and China through the C5+1 initiative. BRICS bloc plans to introduce a common currency. Expert discusses the concerning timing of the U.S. dollar. BRICS is discussing the introduction of a common currency to replace the US dollar in international trade. The discussion may take place at the summit in South Africa later this year. The goal of BRICS is to create a currency that provides greater accessibility and fairness in international trade. However, establishing a common currency for the BRICS nations requires time and long-term cooperation. Currently, BRICS countries are increasing the use of the Chinese yuan in trade settlements.